Going live. Let's keep an eye. It'll be in a different spot. But let's see if it's there.
Shows it's up on the page now, like the normal page that like a person can see.
Okay. Let's see if we pop up here in a second on this live stream. Whatever, it's a different link.
Scheduled for 11:15.
Okay. So it's not. But let's see if can I make it go live this second?
Yeah, we're live.
You can see us on the tube? You saying you can see us?
Did I say anything crazy?
Nah. I just put it up. How long has it been up? It should have just gone up a second ago.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay. All right. Let me get some people over here from the other one. Wrong link previously. Restart this bed.
There's only one link up though, I think.
Yeah, I see another one here, so I'll just new page. All right. So now we're there. Now we're good.
Cool.
All right. You got us. Cool. We can restart the pod. I don't know what. Had to back into John, do a little this and that. But we in now. All right. You want to you restart the audio?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
All right. 3, 2, Middle Cough.
Hey, behave.
Recording this podcast on a Tuesday morning live on the tube. And here we are. Here we are, John.
Tuesday morning, I'd say it's lunch.
Lunchtime. 11:15 is lunchtime.
If you're Jocko, it's like mid-afternoon. Depends what time you get up.
I mean, what time does that guy start swinging kettlebells? Like 4:30 a.m. local? Earlier?
I mean, I had a day this morning. My eyes opened at 5:30, and I'm someone who grew up loving to sleep more than any, and or 5:30, and I was out of bed by about 5:50.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I just can't sleep sometimes.
Can you work
sometimes
out
I
at
can.
that time? If you do that and you just pop up out of bed at 5:50.
My most productive is I drink coffee. I did a little work for about an hour and a half. I did go at about 7:30 this morning.
Pretty good. Any run-ins? Any issues?
No, well, I mean, you don't have to worry about corona run-ins anymore because the masks are off. And maybe the times that I go, everyone's much more friendly. Sunday was an edgy group.
They got the Sunday scaries. They're trying to work those off.
Yeah, this guy was pissed.
All right. What's up, everybody? We got things rolling now. Don't forget to get in the Haberman and Middlecoff mailbag. You go to the iTunes page. You leave us a review, 5 stars. In that review, you leave a question, whatever you want, and we'll address it on the weekend mailbag show. Also, you mentioned this the other day. We got the Facebook page, Haberman and Middlecoff on Facebook. Jumpstarting that bad boy. So if you want to throw a question there, and we'll include one of those. Maybe we'll pull something from there for the mailbag. We'll see.
I just am tweeting out as well. The U.S. Open, this little thing called the United States Open Golf Tournament, Torrey Pines. Our DraftKings game, we have no math major here, 66 spots left. As of record, I'm tweeting it out right now. Boom, tweeted it out.
Oh, you know
Sometimes
what?
people are like, I can't find the game.
I know. Let me, we're a little discombobulated here to start this thing today. Let me add the link will be in the podcast description. The link to join the DraftKings game in the podcast description. And it is now in the YouTube video. If you happen to be watching the YouTube, that you can also find the link directly to the Haberman and Middlecoff League with the game is there. If you're new to DraftKings, sign up with the code HAM. Okay?
And you mentioned it earlier, Facebook. I threw it up there, I think, yesterday. I mean, we got a lot of shit going on, Haberman. Lot. I mean, a 2-man operation. We are like SEAL Team 6 here. We can accomplish a lot with a small group because it's not like we got 15 people. You know, some of these media companies got all these people. They're getting overpaid. You know, let's call it what it is. Some of these companies are getting overpaid by some of these sponsors, and they're doing who knows what. We deliver, and we get our money's worth because we only have to pay me and you.
It's a pop and pop operation, John. It's a pop and pop. The old pop and pop. But, you know, if Pop and Pop suddenly popped up doing some other things that you wouldn't expect from a Pop and Pop shop. Pop and Pop. Is that all? Were those all our announcements to start class today? I think so.
Yep, all of our announcements. Yep.
All right, well,
download the DraftKings app.
God, what a week! What a week this is. You got to take these when you can get it. We got a U.S. Open. Okay, podcast videos. It's all brought to you in part by our friends at DraftKings. We mentioned it. Get in the Haberman and Middlecoff DraftKings game. Also, DraftKings is popping off for the NBA playoffs nonstop, John. Big deal when you play basketball DraftKings. If you want to get in, again, Haberman and Middlecoff League. We had a league. It's been going now for over a year. It's been wildly successful. 200-person game. Sign up with the code HAM. Get in right now.
We are big fantasy guys. I mean, big fantasy guys.
Daily fantasy guys.
Yeah, well, we came in late to the game because we never did normal fantasy. I have nothing. You couldn't pay me to do normal fantasy. Daily fantasy all day long with our friends at DraftKings. Just download the top-rated DraftKings app now. Use the promo code HAM when you sign up. Free shot at $10,000. $10,000. Total prizes every day. Basketball playoffs. Head to DraftKings pool page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code HAM for a limited time only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for full details.
Get your skin in the game. The free-to-play pools for the hoops, the Haberman and Middlecoff League for the golf, nonstop, baby. Podcast also brought to you in part by MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. You use HAM1 to sign up. You can accept the bonus, which is 50% of your deposit amount up to $1,000. You can also decline the bonus because you do have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. But either way, HAM1, what are you looking at for the U.S. Open right now?
What do you think about first-round leader bets?
You know,
this guy,
I had not thought about a first-round leader bet until you brought it up to me, and I'll go ahead. Tell me more.
Jason Kokrak. He just won a couple weeks ago at Congressional, beat Jordan Spieth. No big deal on his home turf. The one thing about first-round leader bets, because it's a pretty tough bet to hit, 66-1 first-round leader bet. If you bet $25 on 66-1, that would be like $1,250. If you bet $50, it'd be $3,300. If you bet $100, it'd be $6,600. Kokrak. Oh, we just need to get hot with the putter. He's a top 5 putter. 66-1, guy. How do you beat that?
I got one I like. How about this one? You know, they played the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines back in late January. Patrick Reed in the first round shot a 64. Okay, round 1, 64. That was the bet, him and Alex Noren. And then he shot a round 468, which was the 4th best 4th round shot at this course. Also went 72-70. So he's 40-1 right now.
Ooh.
P. Reed, who's he playing with?
Leishman and Rahm.
So here he is with Rahm. Rahm, you got to figure, is on a mission. Okay?
Yeah.
Rahm's got a lot to prove. A lot of eyeballs on Rahm. Everyone's watching Rahm. What does that mean? Little foot wedge over here by the tree. No one's going to notice. So you account a stroke there. I'm telling you, I like P. Reed. P. Reed likes this course based on recent action.
You know, when Rahm got kicked out of the tournament for Corona, the tour does give you $100,000. So he did get some money. They have the $100,000 Corona thing.
That's not bad.
So,
what I would love is to get a false positive when I'm one stroke from missing the cut on Saturday or Friday.
What do you think about this? Max Homa, top 5 in the tournament. Local guy, Southern California guy, used to the Bermuda, used to the POA, used to the dew in the air. Also Southern California guy, so he's comfortable down there.
To the water, the ball's going to roll, even if it's uphill.
Top 5, 16-1. Top 5, 16-1. Max Homa.
Okay. How about Victor Hovland?
Don't hate him either.
What's his top 15? I'm going to go give that a peek right now. Top 15, top 10,
well,
top 5, whatever. I like Hovland, maybe not to win, but be in the mix.
I've seen a lot of people betting on Matt Wolff. Remember, he was dueling it out last year with Bryson.
Wolff,
he's disappeared for a year. I don't know if I'd put any money on Matt Wolff. Matt Wolff should stay away from me. I think Jordan Spieth should stay away from me as well.
Jordan Spieth is, judging from the DraftKings game and the MyBookie, Jordan Spieth is getting a lot of action. He won the Valero. He's top 10, John, in 5 of his last 7 events. So maybe a Jordan Spieth top 10. He's also 176th in driving accuracy, and that looks like it's going to be important this week. But, you know, he's getting a lot of action, which I'm rooting
That's
for.
never
I don't
been
know
his
if he's
thing.
value. No, it hasn't.
Yeah,
He's won without him.
It's not his thing. To me, he is Phil Mickelson, and where does Phil Mickelson never win? The U.S. Open. To me, he's a stay away. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Get your gamble on, dog.
All right.
Or doggies.
Or doggies.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. So it's just, we're excited right now. We're caffeinated. We're fired up to be here. Okay. So we're not getting Brooks and Bryson, by the way, before we dive into some football stuff. They asked Bryson. They didn't ask Bryson. I'd be a little surprised if they asked him, but I probably shouldn't be. I know that's what Brett Faxon said.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would ask him. His agent declined or claimed that their declining is a made-up lie, that they were never asked.
Brad Faxon said they asked him and he declined it, and then his agent said we were never asked.
My take overall would be I do understand, because I think a lot of people are like, why do you ask? I'm a big believer you fucking give apologies later. You don't ask for permission. You just figure it out. He is the defending champion. Like, he's the U.S. Open defending champion. That has to stand for something. If he was not the defending champion, I would be really hot and bothered. But I thought that it was going to be – I didn't expect it, and I did think they would ask him because he is the defending champion. Like, that is a pretty big – he's your defending champion, right? Isn't that a big deal?
No. It's a big deal at the Masters where you get to pick the menu. Other than that, no, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal in terms of the build-up to the whole thing. Like, a national championship team is your defending champions. But as Chris Peterson said, we don't get to carry last year with us. We all go back to square one when a new season kicks off. So I understand. I will defend Bryson on his goal is to go win the U.S. Open this week. So if he thinks being around Brooks is a distraction, then it makes it harder for him to win the U.S. Open. That's his primary focus. I actually don't have a big problem with it, in part because it's just everyone loves piling on him. So I'll defend a little bit there. But and the other thing is, you told me they do have a way they do things, right? The defending champ and like the Masters champ and somebody else, and they play together.
The U.S. Amateur, yeah.
Okay, so that to me is better argument.
There is a protocol.
Being the defending champ at the thing, I'm cool with it getting you the best parking spot. You getting to weigh in on how they structure the tournament, I would not be down. Again, if that's the reason that they ask, I think that's a little goofy.
They actually manipulated it. It's usually the U.S. Open champion, the previous Open champion, and the U.S. Amateur. Well, there was no Open last year, right, because of international water, so they threw Hideki in there. So they're already manipulating it a little bit. Listen, don't get me wrong. Like, I wanted to see it. I think most people in golf were not expecting it, though, right? They thought, yeah,
we were not. You asked me the other day. I said 10%. That's probably high. I didn't ask you the same question. What would you have said?
Yeah, I mean that even felt like, I'm closer to 0 than I am 10.
There's no promise of this. You can only create what you create. We could wait the rest of our lives and never get the two of them playing together on a Sunday, which is what we really want. Sometimes, life is stranger than fiction. Hopefully that comes to be here, where we actually get something better than those two playing together in the first round. I think what would be interesting is if we're rolling through on Saturday evening and there's the chance the two of them play together and, somebody makes a putt to make it happen or misses a putt to prevent it from happening. Those guys usually don't have any idea what would be the results in terms of pairings while they're playing Saturday. But
does feel inevitable, though, because a tournament that they're both at that's not on this level, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you lean into it? Like, it's going to happen, you'd think.
For the PIP, John. What about I thought everyone was talking shit for the PIP.
I know. I want some PIP.
Anyway. All right. So let's dive in. Time for some takes. We're here for the takes. I mean, that was a take. But now we're here for some takes. So I saw, I think today, what was the worst take of the day. And this is what I loved about this take, is it was a totally classic, just sports, harmless. There's no problem with it. This is not anything outside of just a sports take. I think it's a bad take, but it's just a good old-fashioned sports take, John. And that take was on the Ross Tucker podcast. Adam Lefkoe said that he thinks people are more excited about off seasons in their sports. Now, he identified football, but he said he was talking about all sports. More excited about the off seasons than the actual seasons. People are more interested in the NFL draft and free agency, and during the season, they care more about their fantasy team than the wild card race. I think it's untrue. And the reason I wanted to address it is because Ross Tucker then retweets the video. It's got, as of whatever, early in the morning on Tuesday, 20,000 views on the video. I think people will regurgitate it. It's a bad take. Don't repeat it. Ross Tucker retweeted at John and said, is this true? The answer is unequivocally no. It is not true. What have I preached? You and I have talked about this for years. The games. NFL games are the most valuable property that anybody has in all of sports outside of owning the actual teams. And honestly, I hadn't thought about it until just now. I'd probably rather own the TV rights than one individual team. I mean, it is so valuable. I guess with the team, you know, it's probably the way to go. But the games,
you get to reap the $100 billion.
Yeah. The games. The games do $15 million. The Sunday Night Football is the #1 TV show, 10 years running, no competition. Yeah, the NFL draft this year did like $14 million. It was an incredibly huge draft. That's once a year. It was an outlier draft because of all the big name quarterbacks that were in it, and it's not big. The games are doing $15 million a week, maybe 16, maybe 17. The games. All this other stuff is great because of the games. The games.
Yeah, well,
are the
it's not
thing.
true. But Lefko is an NBA guy now. Works for TNT. Hosts the show on Tuesday night with Shaq and Dwayne Wade. In the NBA, the offseason, the movement is bigger than the games. Their games no longer rate. The playoffs
I'm not even
are in
positive
shambles.
that that's true. Like,
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if they did an NBA offseason free agency show, the talk would not be bigger than a game rating. It would not.
Well,
be.
no, but I think.
I mean, okay, LeBron's decision's big, but you don't get that every year.
Yeah, I think media people in the space, their podcasts, their television shows and their videos that they put out in the NBA space do bigger deals about trades, about guys demanding trades, guys moving teams. And now definitely in the NBA, the regular season, no one watches anymore. The playoffs kind of hit or miss depending on what brand is in there. The NFL is in a completely different universe. And this was my issue with Brooks and Bryson, is the NFL does not relate to any of these other fucking sports. Because like you said, their games, the Jags-Texans Thursday night, the shittiest game possible, will still get 10 million people watching. You could add up the last 5 NBA playoff games, and it probably wouldn't equal that, right? The last week of NBA playoff games. They have nothing in common with these other leagues. And my issue with golf is, as a diehard golf guy, you're fighting for this. There is no #2 sport in America. But Lefko has become an NBA guy. In the NBA little ecosystem, I think they believe like that they're #2, and that the data would say, just follow Ethan Strauss. They are no longer that. I don't know if it's baseball. I don't know if it's golf. It just depends on the time of year and what event's going on. But like in the other sports, some of that stuff does matter. Like right now in like the baseball little bubble, talking about the stuff on the ball, suspending guys, but with pay, like that is in football, like that stuff matters a lot too. Like we like talking about BSing during the week, but when the game comes on, it's the only sport that you can guarantee that fucking a shitload of people are going to be on their couch and watching. It's the only sport. And that's where like your whole take is it's not comparable to all the other stuff. And they also have great drama too, but their drama equals to the game.
Well, but he's talking about off season. So your in-season drama is helped by the fact that you have games. So to me, yeah, occasionally you get some free agency story that really matters. Occasionally you get a draft that's massive. But the games happen so often that I would argue with every sport, like baseball hot stove, I don't care who the free agent is not going to consistently be a better talking point for your average fan than even their game. You can tell me baseball ratings are down, NBA, whatever. Like their game, the stuff you do around the games is still going to be bigger than the stuff that happens when there's no games.
Let's be real about the hot stove. PG&E turned out the power. Hot stove now lasts for fucking 5 months. Like a hot stove's dead.
Right, but my point is, pick whatever you got. The games, the stuff that happens around your games is still going to be bigger than the stuff that doesn't happen around your games.
Well, yeah. To me, the NBA, or excuse me, the NFL's greatest point of difference right now is no matter what, when I turn on the game. One, the star players that they're playing in that game, I just know I'm going to get their best effort. And I know that they're going to play if they're healthy. In baseball, we talked about it with DeGrom. Like at any moment, the sweet pitcher can get yanked out of the game, right? And in baseball, also hitters, like you just get some games off. In basketball, they've proven that the guys don't even play. Football has a point of difference that their game, like Patrick Mahomes, week 11's like, I'm just going to take the day off and just kind of cruise toward the end of the season. Like that's just not going to happen. And then when you're watching the game, unless they get injured, they're going to play. Like I think they have so many advantages that are just built in the nature of the sport. My take on the 3 and Out podcast, it hit me over the weekend. I think the NFL is going to continue to separate from everything else, and it's already in the lead dog, because their games are so much better than all the other games. I'm just talking regular season, right? Because the one thing where baseball and basketball have lost people, we don't watch because their playoffs are still cool. Like you can't watch a sweet playoff baseball or basketball game if you like sports and go, this isn't good, right? Most people are going to agree it's very entertaining if you watch a tight, big game in either sport. But the people don't watch in the regular season anymore. In the NFL, everyone's locked in. Now, you can say that's because of fantasy football. Fantasy football, like fantasy baseball and fantasy they die to have people like that locked in and watching the games. With fantasy football means you're fucking watching the Bengals if I live in California. That's a good thing. The NFL's like, that's why we just got $100 billion. You got Middlecoff and Haberman watching the New York Giants game because I got Saquon Barkley and you got Golden Tate, right? Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, whether they're watching because they care about the wild card race or their fantasy team, they're watching the games. Again, it's all centered around the games. Off-season's good, but the games are better. Off-season's good, the games are better. I think, and I've said this for years, the built-in advantage for the NFL is that it's harder to break up, as media has become more fractured, it's harder to break up NFL games into more fragmented pieces. Baseball, with 162 games, 81 home games, has always relied on the fragments of the volume of fragmented games over the course of a season, adding up to a big number. Basketball, the same. Ton of games, 82 games. The fragments of your games add up to a big number. Well, the NFL, the beauty is that the product is finite. There's 16 games, now 17, right? Now 16 games, now there's 17 games. So, and here's the other thing. There's no my team plays on the East Coast at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. There's Mondays, there's Thursdays, there's Sundays. That's it. So I can still be 100% of my energy. I can miss multiple days I can take Tuesday off and Wednesday off. Hell, I can take Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. But the main course is going to be there for me on Sunday. And it is so built into everything. It's built into everything in just American culture. It doesn't require. The NFL requires the least commitment from a fan to stay locked in on what's happening. Now, you got to commit to some time on Sunday. That's cool. It's Sunday. It's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason Sunday night is premium TV, because it's an easy one. It's the least commitment, and yet it creates the most widespread content. It's
one major issue.
But again, I'll go back to the original point. Sorry, John. It centers around the games.
But also with the games in football, and this works for college football too, they all matter. Now, like one game won't determine if you're going to win the Super Bowl or not, but that individual game matters. And everyone knows it on both sides of the ledger, right? Both teams fan bases, both teams coaches, both teams quarterbacks, both teams general managers. In basketball, they've told us now for years our regular season doesn't matter. We do not care. And in baseball, historically, like they can't care about every single game. It's like it's a long season. You can't tell in our generation we don't care and expect us to give a fuck. Like that's been a huge problem for both sports. And it's where the old people, they're still into baseball, but the younger generation, like, why would I watch? It doesn't even matter. And in the NBA, their stars literally tell you, I don't care about this game. I'm not going to play. Well, why the fuck should I? And I don't. I kind of do. My peers don't. Right? But in the NFL, they would never tell you that. Can you imagine a coach be like, that game didn't? They would never utter those words. Not in a million years. It's why I'm hard on Adam Silver. I think he's let the league get away from him. And he's got a problem. It's been an epidemic of resting. To me, the tanking thing is less of an issue because there's always been shitty teams. It's more that just like your star players. I've had so many friends over the years buy a ticket to a game, whether it's a Kings game to see a star player, a Warriors game, and they just sit. Like that is, it's basically, I've said it for a while now, it's looking at every guy in the stands and flipping your middle finger to him. And the NFL, the only way the guy's not playing is if he's injured. He's never like, we're giving Jamal Adams, Russell Wilson, DK the week off. Can you imagine? I mean, that would be one of the biggest stories. Like, that would never happen. It may happen week 17 for the playoffs, but that's somewhat understood.
It happens in the preseason, but it's such an accepted part. It's been such a built-in part of the preseason. It's not the regular season. It's the preseason.
And we kind of all agree that that's somewhat of a scam, charging people.
Yeah, and they eliminated one of the games and added a regular season game. I think now. By the way,
fans take seriously what you take seriously.
I think baseball's doing a good. I think baseball's trying. And look, I'm a diehard baseball guy, so I watch baseball all the time, and I think they've done a better job of trying to elevate some of the young, fun guys they got. But again, there is a built-in disadvantage for baseball. Now, they also have if you get something good going, there's an advantage in that you are on every night. So that can be good in a local market, but that's different than talking about a national product. In the NFL, it's a national product, meaning you care about the whole big picture in addition to your local team. Baseball's more about just let me watch my team and see where everything shakes out in the end. I think a great example of the urgency that the NFL creates is the 49ers in 2019, when the Niners were 8-0, and it felt like if they lose a game, which they did at 8-0 to the Seahawks, if they lose a game or two or three, this whole thing, they could all of a sudden become a wild card team, right? They look like the most dominant team in the league, and it still kind of felt like they got to win every week, which of course wasn't totally true because they lost 3 games and still became the 1 seed, but they had to have an incredible year just to hang on to that spot. I think that's a perfect example of making sure that every game matters. Because you can very early in an NFL season start talking about how many teams have started 1-3 and made the playoffs, right? All those stats exist because a quarter of the season is over in a month.
You have to care about things if you want your fans to care about them. I think it's really just that simple. I think you and I grew up in a generation where that was less important. In 2021, though, and the way people younger than us think, you'll lose them quick, and they have. I mean, just these other sports. And they have built-in disadvantages, the length of the season. Like, ultimately, a baseball game today just does not matter. And that is just a problem. It just is. And in baseball, you can try to get around it, but it's like that's just a built-in problem and no fault of their own. And then when you factor in, you see Brian Price, Bob Nightingale wrote a long article. He just quit. And he's just like, I hated the way I felt about my sport. And people are like, you're just an old guy. He's like, I hated the game I was managing and watching. And it was not.
He didn't like using the opener?
Just everything about it.
Just doing it off the spreadsheet?
Yeah, he just thought it was boring to watch. Just everything involved with it. It was a good article.
Yeah,
again, you're talking about two guys like I watch a lot.
The bottom line is you got a lot of options. And so the things you watch are the things that are urgent.
And football has that and the other sports just don't.
But again, I'll go back to the original point. Football's offseason is not better than football season. Yeah, you can get a good month in a given year if there's a big debate about who's the number one quarterback. It's still big, but it's not going to be bigger than the actual season. It's not. And you don't want it to be. You want there to be a lot of stuff around your sport that keeps your sport in the news cycle 365 days a year. But you ultimately have to pay it off. Like, your consumer has to feel like it's building towards something. And with the NFL, it's always building towards the games.
I think Lefko kind of lives more in the NBA world, and I do think it's true that I think that has overtaken the games, which has ruined the product for a lot of people. Right? Or ruin the relevancy of the product, which obviously has a precipitous drop off in interest. Because
free agency is a big deal when it's about where's your star player going to end up, but your star players can't end up on different teams every other year.
But I think even the bigger issue with free agency is all these players demanding trades nonstop, like 24, all the sweet players in the NBA.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is, like, with him, like, I get what he's saying. Like, if you made a show about free agency, that would be huge. It's true, but you can't keep going back to that well if it's your best players changing teams all the time. Because now you have broken all the connection between the fan and the team is pretty valuable. That's how they get invested. That's what keeps them coming back. My team versus your team, right? if you watch, like I was watching, I told you that Leeds United thing the other day. I watched one episode. These people are hell bent. Like there was some guy on the team who's from the area, whatever town Leeds is in. And he's like, the fans were like, he's got to step it up. He knows what Leeds means to us because he's one of us, and he needs to be better. I was like, damn. Okay, like that connection is really important.
Yeah, shit needs to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Speaking of star players on different teams, how about this guy? Stephon Gilmore, John, not showing up to mandatory OTAs. The voluntary offseason workouts he didn't come to, did not show up yesterday, today, or presumably won't show up on Wednesday. So that'll cost him $90,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood. He's on last year of his deal, John. He's got $7 million coming to him. He was the defensive player of the year a couple of years ago. Dan Graziano on Monday said there's some thought that he could get traded in March around free agency. That didn't happen. There's issues. Teams that are interested know he's not happy with the contract, so you got to give up something to get him, and then you got to give him something, and that makes teams reluctant to part with the kind of value the Patriots are certainly wanting. And I remember before he tore his quad last year, there was some talk that the Patriots were going to try and their intent was to trade him during the season before the deadline. Then he got hurt. They couldn't do it. So now they're hanging on to him. And, Jalen Ramsey's IG posting trying to recruit him. I think he's going to be 31. Would you be interested in him? Would you be interested in Stephon Gilmore in a trade?
I think it was a pretty big blow for the Patriots because if he was healthy, they might have been able to get a 1, right? Because he still had another year and a half under contract. Yeah, and then he got hurt and it screwed him. I have a philosophy, and I developed it within the last 24 hours. You never want to say never to anything in life, so you have to be open-minded. But you cannot go down the well multiple times of extending star players to their third contract, non-quarterback. And the Niners just did it with Trent Williams. And it's a bold move. Now, they didn't really have a choice, but they are getting an older player. This is his third contract. He was a highly drafted guy. He got a huge extension. They gave him the third. I would say in the history of the league, you usually, star non-quarterbacks have like an 8 or 9 year run. Cardinals with J.J. Watt, they gave him a lot less than Trent Williams. Like, that's a pretty risky proposition. I'm not in that business. And you can do it once. This would be the second time the Niners did it. And like you said, it would probably, like, they're just going to give a second. It was kind of the Julio Jones thing. Are you going to give a second and then give Julio Jones a contract? Now he hasn't demanded a contract, so Gilmore's even more. Like, Julio showed up last week, right, and practiced with Tennessee. Gilmore's wouldn't do that with the Patriots or another team. So I would say it would be a no-go for me.
Yeah, I think with him, you'd probably have to agree.
And he's coming off a major injury.
And he's coming off a quad tear. You'd probably have to agree to a contract with him, right, before you acquire him. You'd have to at least have an understanding of what you're going to pay him before you acquire him, because you're not going to give up whatever you have to give up for him if you think he's going to come hold out and you don't want to pay him. Like, as an example, Jamal Adams didn't show. Jamal Adams is holding out in Seattle. Well, look, this will be his first. He's coming off his rookie contract. He's got 1 year left on his deal. This is not a surprise to the Seahawks. I think when they traded for him, they had to have every intention that they're going to pay Jamal Adams. Now, what's that number going to be? We'll see. But this is not a surprise to anybody. This is what they knew was coming when they acquired the guy. And it's different, right? Because what is he, 25? Now, he got hurt last year, but he's 25, 26 years old. He's relatively young. This is a different spot. I think the only reason it even crosses my mind with Gilmore and the Niners is because I do think ultimately it's going to be a position where they need another guy at corner. But, this would be a lot, because I think they, like you said, they would expect a lot for him because he's still a really good player. Are they in the business of trading Stephon Gilmore for a third?
If the Niners could do that draft over, they would have taken Jamal Adams over Solomon Thomas.
Man.
They probably just would have taken Patrick Mahomes, but let's not go down that road.
Yeah, once you start redoing that draft.
What was the question you asked on Gilmore?
Well, are the Patriots going to trade him for a 4th-round pick? 3rd-round pick?
Well, if he's not going to show, they might. Yeah.
I'd be a little surprised.
But is the team going to trade a 3rd-round pick for him if he's not going to show up?
What would he get right now if he were a free agent?
I mean, off the major injury, I think it would be a pretty complicated issue. He's injured.
So if you're not giving him a major contract off free agency, now maybe you would do it. Maybe you would
1 year, $20 million or something.
Guaranteed?
Well, I mean, just a one. Well, Clowney got 15. I mean, what's 18? I mean, he's
that feels high to me.
12 with incentives to get to 20.
He played for like 12 last year. They moved some of his money up. That's why he's only making 7 this year. But yeah, to echo
he's a complicated situation that I would not be in the business of unless I get for an all-time. If I get could I get for $5 million? Again, I'm not trading for him unless I can trade for him a mid-round pick, and it doesn't make any sense for the Patriots to just write it out.
Here's the thing:
what's he going to do? Not
on
show
a third-year contract? Are you signing a 1-year deal? In other words, if he were a free agent and you told me the Niners could get him 1 year, and I would anything over like 14 would feel. I'm talking free agent. I'm not talking about giving up compensation. That's a whole other conversation. What would you pay for him on a 1-year contract if you were the 49ers? Would you give him 18?
I would do something risky, yeah, 14,
okay,
15, 16.
But he's not going to – so you're not going to trade a fourth?
Can I work him Can I work him out?
If he's a free agent, let's say he does a physical and whatever.
I would take a swing. But I think we agree that it could be a disaster, right?
It could. And so now you throw into that, are they real? I see. I don't know. I would – this is why we talked about him around the draft is because – before they drafted Mac Jones, could you trade Jimmy for him? And you're both kind of taking a risk. But
I've changed my tune to just the more I've thought about older players, and I would stay away from paying premiums. I have no problem getting him on a discount, but you got to pay a premium for his services. And he's old and he's hurt.
You got to pay a premium in contract or in trade asset?
I'm just talking about hypothetically if he was a free agent. Like I just would not be in the business of trading for older players. When you don't have a lot of picks, too. That's pretty risky business.
Well, that's where, to me, what they could end up with is a player-for-player trade. You're trading somebody kind of redundant or risky. Again, that's not the case right now with the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not redundant at this point in time.
Well, the Patriots don't need him anymore.
And the Patriots, yeah. But my point is, like, they've done those types of deals before, right?
I would do that. I would do a player-for-player trade, yes.
And then give him a 1-year contract. But I don't know if he's showing up for a 1-year contract.
But the Niners don't really have a player-for-player trade to give him that the Patriots would want.
No. Now I'm just talking about him and the Patriots. I don't think it fits for the Niners from that standpoint. I think it used to fit for the Niners. I don't think it
One thing I think Gilmore's going to find out is teams aren't going to be lined up for him, that he might have to roll back with the Patriots, play well, then maybe he could get like a 2-year, $30 million contract, $20 million guaranteed. Do you agree with that? Like if he just rides this out with the Patriots, is good again, maybe he could get a big payday. Not from Belichick, because Belichick does not give third contracts.
No, John, Belichick's got J.C. Jackson, an undrafted free agent on the other side, who's actually pretty good. So
yeah,
he's not into it. He doesn't get enough credit for J.C. Jackson, I don't think, by the way.
Well, I think he would have got a lot of credit last year. Remember the last 2 years, the Patriots, it was their worst Tom Brady season 2 years ago, right? They got bounced in the first round. It was just kind of weird. And then last year, they weren't that good. To me, if they would have been Super Bowl level Patriots, I think a lot of people would be blowing J.C. Jackson publicly. I think he flies a little under the radar nationally because the Patriots have just slipped a little bit. If he had been the J.C. Jackson in like 2016, I think a lot people would be like, Malcolm Butler, Now, Malcolm did have the play.
Yeah.
But Malcolm Butler can't run. Malcolm Butler was a good player, right? But if you just went down the street and ran into NFL fans, you bring up Malcolm Butler. Every human knows who Malcolm Butler is. I mean, he's probably one of the most famous players of the last decade, non-quarterback.
Well, he's made one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, but he parlayed that into a big contract with the Titans.
Yeah,
can't run.
The other thing was the legend of it, right? That it was like this was the play they practiced 3 days before or something like that.
Yeah, and he took a wrong angle, and then they coached him up, and they knew the play was coming. Yeah, it was a sweet play.
It was a sweet play. John, let's tell the people about our friends at Decked.
Oh,
are you kidding me? Decked.com/ham. Decked.com/ham. Decked, if you own a truck, I see ever since Decked jumped on the pod, we talked to Decked a couple weeks ago. They're on the pod this week. I went on a walk yesterday. I walked by a bunch of construction zone, pickup trucks everywhere. And all I can see now is people who need Decked. The drawer system for organizing, accessing, protecting, and securing everything that you carry with you in your truck.
Guy, each of Deck's 2 full bed length drawers can carry up to 200 pounds of whatever you got. The drawers roll out waist high, giving you easy access. Organize your tools, gear, whatever. Hey, you want a tailgate? You pull that bad boy out, throw some brewskis in there, some Trulies, some White Claws, some Coors Light seltzers, whatever you want, Tito's, throw it in the ice, boop, 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 and then you got a tailgate. The deck system keeps your gear secure. It's out of sight and out of mind. It lays down on the bed, so you can still put things over it, right? Up to 2,000 pounds, whatever you got, right? You want a couple offensive linemen, a couple Trent Williams, stand right on there, no big deal.
The How much do you think Trent Williams weighs?
Right, not that much, 320. The deck system is 100%. I love this. Made in the USA and backed by a 3-year no-hassle warranty with a second-to-none customer service team ready to answer all your questions.
4.89 stars and over 7,000 reviews. There's plenty of, like John mentioned, non-traditional ways. You can retrofit it with electronics. You fill the drawers with ice for your big tailgates. You can put your 4x4 with that 2,000-pound payload capacity. You can put your 4x4 on top of the drawers. Keeps your gear secure, out of sight, out of mind, and weatherproof as well. So 3-year warranty, but I think you mentioned this. Did you mention this today or the other day?
The other day. They've never turned anyone down.
It's a great company to work with. Fits every full-size truck and cargo van made since the mid-'90s and every mid-size truck since around 2005. Take the worry out of your mind when it comes to your truck. It's durable. It's a stress reliever. No other product like it. Go check it out. It's fun to look at. We did it. Decked.com/ham. That's decked.com/ham for your free shipping. Decked.com/ham.
Do it.
I don't know if you got this, but I got some of these in my DMs today. Go get Florio. Go get him. I don't know how Florio became like this lightning rod for takes, but
he's become, as someone who's not on Twitter as much as I used to. That's where I take Florio. I have noticed, though, specifically, he does some trolling things. Like he's plays to his little role of, he can be a little fake with some of the shit he does. He knows what he's doing, I guess, what I'm saying.
He said this during, I pulled these quotes from 49ers Web Zone, who compiled some of what Florio said, John.
I love aggregators.
I keep going back to the common denominator for dysfunction in Green Bay, the dysfunction in San Francisco, the dysfunction with the Rams where they dumped Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford, the dysfunction with the Seahawks. It all traces back to Tom Brady. The dysfunction, is he just listing NFC champions as dysfunctional? What is he talking about? He went on to say, or one of the other things he said that he listed as evidence that the Niners are dysfunctional was that they traded up to 3 before they knew who they wanted, and in his estimation, they could have got their guy at 12.
Well, I think a lot of the media feels like they have egg on their face with the Mac Jones thing. They put all their chips in the middle of the table for whoever was telling them that, and they were adamant. And it wasn't just they felt like people taking swings. People kept doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down. And then Mac Jones was not only not selected, he went 15th. So it's like a lot of people look dumb. Now, I don't think that's necessarily what he means here. I do believe when Kyle said that they were taking Trey Lance the entire time, I said from the beginning that I don't know if this is true, but when they made the trade, I believe that they had their list. They were going to – now, obviously, things can change over a month and a half or whatever. They made the trade, I do believe, to take Trey Lance. And I think it's been proven that when they did that, it had a domino effect on the Broncos, who then traded for Teddy Bridgewater, and the Carolina Panthers. Like, over that month, they got word, like, it's going to be Trey Lance. And they got Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater. Because Trey Lance, I saw one of the things he was saying, again, I didn't read this, an aggregator had wrote this. One thing, Florio was adamant that the Niners screwed up the trade. They could have got Trey Lance at 12. That is not correct. They could have got Mac Jones at 12. That has been proven. Trey Lance, no chance to me he makes it past like 5 because those teams would have traded up to get him. Trey Lance, who was on the Colts board, like he was widely highly thought about. Mac Jones was not. Mac Jones was the ultimate smokescreen because nobody in the freaking league. I talked to a team that was not in the quarterback mix, and I said, where do you think, if the Niners don't take Mac Jones, not that I believe they would, this was in like April leading up to the draft, where do you think he's going to go? He's like, you know what's funny? We were sitting with our feet up, bullshitting after meetings. We had the same fucking conversation because we couldn't find a place. Bill might have been the only guy. Bill ended up taking him. So I think a lot of these people feel they got played to the Rams on Florio. Like, trading for Matt Stafford and getting rid of Jared Goff isn't dysfunction. It's a genius freaking move. Every Niner fan I know wanted Matt Stafford, and rightfully so. What are you talking about? Dysfunction. Now, you could argue, like, is it classy the way Sean McVay's talking shit about McVay? Is that the right thing to do? That's not dysfunction. Honestly, I appreciate the authenticity. If you hate a motherfucker, tell me. Right? What Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson do, I think, is kind of fraudulent. Come out and say it, guys. Russell, what player do you want? Like, do you just hate your teammates? Just say it. But you never will because you're this corporate kind of halo around.
You can't say I hate my teammates if you're going to play for that.
Not hate my teammates.
So that's not. That's the right.
But ultimately, he's mad. Like, you want better play. Like, what player do you want? Like, who is the guy you want? Like, Aaron, what is it that you claim it's not Jordan Love? What is it? What's going on? But they will never say it ever. Where it's like, I give Sean McVay some credit. He's at least telling you can't stand the guy. Like, I appreciate authenticity, which is something that is clearly lost.
We all appreciate it, but it's not always in your best interest. Just like it wasn't in Kyle's best interest to be authentic leading up to the draft, right? Like, I think part of what happened with Kyle when he said what he told Tim, he wanted everybody to think it was Mac Jones at that press conference. I think the way his press conference was interpreted was properly interpreted based on what he wanted people to think. Now, the question just became after that point in time, is he lying or is he telling the truth? But it's clear he wanted people to think, at least he has said this, and I think we talked about this after the fact. The thing to interpret from that press conference is he's talking about Mac Jones. The question then is he telling you the truth or is he lying? But that's a separate issue. The idea that is proof of dysfunction, or because here's the other thing Florio is leaving out of this. If we accept his premise that by trading up to that they traded up to 3 without knowing who they were going to take, let's just accept the premise for a second. Kyle has, I think, had a pretty good answer for that, which is it allowed us to do our due diligence for a month and a half without having to hide anything, which is a little untrue because then he went on to hide things. So, some of these things knock into other things. But the point is, part of trading up to 3 is so you can do a deep dive on guys, right? You can show up to Trey Lance's pro day. You can have Trey Lance work out with John Beck. You're not quite as worried about. I do think there are some holes in like this whole thing being presented like this was the master plan and it played out exactly how we wanted from the Niners standpoint. But I do think if you knock them for trading up early, you ignore the fact that they probably did get to do some work on players that would have been harder to do if they weren't sitting there at 3.
To me, if you're operating under the premise they did not know, I don't know if dysfunctional would be the right word. I would say that's pretty insane. If you made the trade not having a guy circled, and then like any human, if you have a month or 2 months to close a deal, right, you should do more due diligence. Like, okay, but if you just made the move, like we think we like one of these 3 guys, let's let it rip. Like, I think we would both be on the same page. If that came out, like they literally had no clue, they were just gonna see. That's nuts, right? Even if it ultimately led to Trey Lance, like that's pretty crazy to make a trade of that magnitude. And I think
simply
it's pretty
for the
fair
right to make the pick.
I think it's pretty fair based on what they said, based on talking about the players, based on John Lynch. I don't think that's true. I will acknowledge the possibility of that maybe being true. I don't believe it's true.
So if I say to you, I think they traded up with an order, with a list, maybe feeling like there were a couple guys they would consider in that list, that's acceptable? Even though, but it wasn't, we absolutely know who we're going to take?
If you told me that when they made the trade, they felt comfortable on tape, like they think Trey Lance, they would take him number 3 overall, but we got to get to know the guy, like I would understand that. Or just knowing like no chance, because it's just an economic exercise, like a player with those attributes. To me, you make that trade knowing once you kind of watch him, once people get their hands on him and you have the background information, like this guy is never going to sniff 12. If they had, this is where my pushback on Mac Jones, if they had made that trade for Mac Jones, you understand the market, and that would have been an embarrassing thing. But they didn't. So I have to give them credit. Like Trey Lance, and back to what I said about Denver, and this is where I think Florio's just kind of been proven wrong. Like Trey Lance was the guy all these teams were kind of circling. And for whatever reason, and I don't quite understand it, even though my guy ended up getting him, I think Justin Fields, even if in NFL circles most people had Trey over Justin, I think Justin was a pretty damn good prospect. But clearly, I mean, teams were off the scent on that one a little. Off the scent's the wrong word, just off on him. Right? Because those two teams passed him. I think, would you agree that Denver and Carolina would have been interested in Trey Lance and try to take him?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that now with hindsight, yes. But I don't think there's –
yeah.
I don't think at all he would have been there at 12. I don't think there's a chance he would have been there.
I don't think he would have made it. I think people would have traded up to like
part of it would have been if you were the Niners, you probably, even if you're sitting there at 12 that day and then he's sitting there at 6, you would have tried to go up to get him in all likelihood. Right? I mean, how far did Chicago come to get Fields?
20-11.
So you're telling me somebody else
if they didn't take him.
My point is we're only talking about
Minnesota was going to trade for him too.
That's right.
Fields.
Thanks to the Panthers social team for that breaking news. But we're only talking about teams that were that were in the top 12, right? When you're talking about Denver and Carolina. There's other teams that would have been beyond the top 12 that also would have considered moving up.
Yeah.
Hell, Bill.
Because some of the teams in the top 10 have quarterbacks, right?
Bill might have considered
shitty.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
You know what I mean? Like if Trey Lance is sitting there at 11, are the Niners just going to get to sit there and seems unlikely.
It's hard. Like I get like they have tenuous quarterback situations because their quarterbacks are, a little sensitive. But like I have a hard time calling Green Bay and Seattle dysfunctional. Like they just have these unique players that are just kind of being a pain in the ass. Like they've had it pretty good. It's hard for to consistently win like those two franchises do and just be like these idiots. And also, like, Stafford for Goff, like, that's just, in my world, not dysfunctional. Is it a miscalculation? Did they pay him when they shouldn't have? And all this, 100%. Did they change their mind? Things change. Because ultimately, McVay, if it had happened to Kyle, it would have been a very polarizing thing. But they kept winning, so we don't talk about it. McVay had to give the thumbs up on the huge contract extension for Jared Goff. He had to have. Or been behind it and cool with it. And then he clearly changed course within – it felt like 12 months. It might have been a little longer, that 18 months, like multiple seasons they were out on him. They go to the Super Bowl with him, they extend him, and then 2 years later he can't stand him. If you and I, the way we talk about the Niners, like that would have been, we would have talked about that nonstop if it would have been the quarterback and Kyle equivalent, right? He okays a huge deal and then he hates him 2 years later. Like that's pretty nuts. But what the one curveball McVay has that Kyle just won't have is like, I didn't draft the guy. We were winning with him, and then things changed. Like, he wasn't my handpicked guy.
Yeah, it's also just the nature of you kind of get stuck with quarterbacks, and you end up in spots you don't want to be when their contracts are up.
They did pay him early, though. Remember, like after year 3.
I understand. But to back to your point on dysfunction, I give the Packers, I give the Seahawks a ton of credit for being this good for this long. You are this good for, in the Packers' case, with Rodgers. 14 years, right? Whatever it is. You're this good. They've been a Super Bowl contender, Seattle, for a decade. Like, if you're going to be good for a decade, it's going to be hard. And I go back to Antonio Brown and the Steelers. What did we say about the Steelers when they got rid of Antonio Brown? The Steelers are dysfunctional, or it's amazing the Steelers made it this long with Antonio Brown? That's what we said. That's right. Like, so I give the Packers credit in many ways. Now, not with this particular situation. We'll see how this resolves itself. But if it resolves itself, they're going to get credit for that. Seattle seems like for the moment it's resolved itself. They get credit for that. It's hard to be on top of the mountain with egos and money and all the attention, all of that comes with it. It is not easy for anybody to stay up at top. So you stay at the top in the NFL, whoever you're a Super Bowl contender for a decade, you're not dysfunctional.
You know why, Guy?
Why?
Wind blows the strongest at the top of the mountain.
That's a good line.
Feels like a Low Neal line. It's
Not
one of
a-
those you just remember.
I like that, John. I like that line a lot.
I do too.
All right, let's talk about George Kittle because he was on Good Morning Football and talked about the quarterbacks. In fact, you know what's funny about this is we just read some quotes from Pro Football Talk on 49ers Web Zone. Pro Football Talk quoted 49ers Web Zone on Kittle quotes from Good Morning Football. So what goes around comes around. Some of these
Aggregators helping aggregators.
now
Feels like Florio's the richest aggregator.
all right, so this is George Kittle on Good Morning Football. I think Trey Lance has all the attributes to be a special quarterback. He takes risks. He's trying to fit the ball into small windows. I'm excited to see his progress throughout training camp. He's definitely in the right spot. About Garoppolo, Kittle said, I know there was a story that came out that Jimmy was one of the first guys to text Trey Lance. That's just the type of guy Jimmy is. He's not going to shy away from adversity, shy away from a draft pick. He has a fire lit under him. He's excited to roll. I know Coach Shanahan said it, and I said it too. I think Jimmy played one of his best OTAs that I've seen. He was just slinging it left and right, and that was fun to see. So what do we think about Kittle talking about his quarterbacks?
Well, as Kyle, when he said it, admitted this was Jimmy's second OTAs with the Niners.
Hasn't had a lot of opportunity.
He was not there in 17. 18 was his first. 19 he missed because of an ACL. The 20s didn't happen, and so he's two of five. So I see what George is saying, and you and I, the one practice we attended, we had planned on attending another one and then minicamp, but they all got canceled, which not the worst thing.
Can't have a holdout if you cancel OTAs and minicamp, John.
No, you can't. But Jimmy looked good. Like I remember talking to you on the sideline, some other people on the sideline. I don't care who you are. Even if probably Rodgers would be a little different with Jordan Love when you see him that bad. In that situation, when you're someone of Jimmy's caliber, right? You've accomplished something, but you're not accomplished enough to be untouchable. And then the amount of draft picks. One thing players are not dumb with, they do understand two things to me in football. Money, right? So if you sign a huge free agent, they immediately know that guy's just gonna get playing time, right? The money equates to playing time, and draft picks equate to playing time immediately. Now things can change, but Jimmy understands when Trey walks out there, what they just invested in him. Even though Jimmy makes more and is anointed the starting quarterback and still told he's taking the 1 reps, like Jimmy understands it. The urgency of just every rep, some of them he's handing the ball to him, some they're just doing the dual passes. They are just kind of hand in hand in everything they do. And Trey's bigger, he's stronger, he's just way younger, and let's face it, he's kind of the apple of the coach's eye, who the coach is, I don't know, the offensive play caller. So if you're Jimmy, this is where back to his the base of his football, I think really benefits him. You and I, we've talked about the Edelman podcast with Chris Long. It actually is a pretty good insight. Just a couple things that I didn't even know. They're like, damn. I mean, you read some of these stories. We've all read them over the years, right? About anything about Tom getting yelled at and everyone gets yelled at, or just no pictures, or just all the stuff that goes on. I didn't realize about their practices. It is an environment where feelings, like Mike McDaniel says, like, we don't do feelings here. We try to win. We're in the business of winning.
I'm telling you, Mike McDaniel's going to be a highly quoted man.
I do think Jimmy coming from the Patriots, like if you just come from random team, it could be a little overwhelming, even if you would accomplish like taking a team to a Super Bowl. I think you get some pelts on the wall just internally, I think, when you just last in New England for several years, right? And in his situation,
you see
like,
a lot.
Right with Tom, right?
You see a lot of discomfort, and you're in a lot of situations that are uncomfortable.
Don't you think he's equipped, given that experience? He has to be better off than most people.
I think he's equipped given that experience. I also think anybody watching or listening to this has been hopeless before. It's a basic human, sometimes in your career, in your personal life, and that feeling can be crippling. It's hard. In your diet, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like you go down that road where it's like, what's the point of working out? Let me just eat 3 pizzas. And
I know.
And then you work out shirtless and you go, I got to make a change. But if you're hopeless, it's hard to motivate yourself. And I think with Jimmy right now, it shouldn't be that hard to motivate himself. Because even though everything you said is true, Trey Lance's physical skills, Trey Lance's draft position, apple of the coach's eye, all that, Jimmy Garoppolo has the upper hand. He's been an NFL quarterback. He knows the offense. He's healthy right now. Like, there's no reason for Garoppolo to feel hopeless or trapped because he has this is not a competition yet, but if it becomes one, he, for right now in 2021, has the advantage. Now, if it was a competition in 2022 or if it was a competition in 2023, he might not have the advantage. But right now, today, he has the advantage. He's played with all the players. He's played with this coaching staff. He knows the offense. He's been in the NFL. He's played a road game with fans in the NFL. You know, I was looking the other day. Washington plays Michigan week 2 of the college football season. Washington, not only did they not play a road game in front of fans last year, they did not play a road game last year. So if you're the returning starting quarterback, like, are you? Right? It's very different. So there's all this
Think how many
stuff.
guys on that team were first-year starters last year. They had to have a decent amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Their coach.
there was a lot, even though you go, maybe I'm hopeless about me finishing my career in San Francisco if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo. You're not hopeless about the opportunity to be the starting quarterback on the team this year. And for that reason, I think he has plenty of, like when Kittle says he looks ready to roll. Yeah, because I think the best competition, the competition you probably get the most out of yourself in is a competition that you think you can win. That's the easiest one to get yourself mentally fired up for. Now, sometimes you're in a competition, maybe you don't think you can win, but you try and you do your best and whatever. But the easiest one to get yourself fired up for is a competition that you need to have a little edge. You need to be on your best in order to win, but you think you can win because that gives you confidence. And that makes you want to compete. And I think right now he should have confidence that if it comes to a competition, he can win that competition, given how little experience Trey Lance has.
The coaches, because so much of football in training camp, like once the season starts, once like we have a month in, we'll just be able to be like, Jimmy's played well. Jimmy's been average. Jimmy's been shitty. Like we'll have evidence. But when a training camp battle happens, even if you're at camp, it's still like you and I could attend every practice. It's pretty subjective unless it's a distinct gap. Because I go back to my second year at Fresno State. Derek came in, and Derek showed up early.
John was the starting tight end.
It was clear that
your sophomore year.
that Carr was better than Ryan Colburn. It was clear, like physically gifted. But Pat, he was just a little, he just wanted to give this guy the chance. Like he kind of manipulated it a little bit. He easily could have chose Derek. And I think there were some older guys on the team that thought it was Ryan's time, but I think everyone acknowledged Derek was more talented. Kyle Can.
Didn't he wait till like the Thursday before the opener to name a starter that year? But
he had told him I think the week before, Ryan knew. Because the opener was against Rutgers, on Thursday night. Greg Schiano, the McCourty brothers, Devin Britt.
They had a receiver. Kenny Britt.
Yeah, but my point is Jimmy can only control what he can control. Kyle gets to kind of it's not out of the realm of possibility if Trey Lance is just freaking incredible and Jimmy's struggling in camp or just Jimmy and Trey's just better, that Trey could just beat him out. It's unlikely, but ultimately it's up to Kyle, not Jimmy. You know what I'm saying? The coach.
I do, but I think
they do have a lot of juice. The coach can just, this guy's a starter. It happens all the time.
It definitely does, but
more than the other sports, right? Just we had it in our gut. Usually in it happens every once in a while in baseball, a guy makes a team out of spring training. But in football, when you have a crazy, this guy's no longer the starter, because in basketball everyone plays. In baseball, even if you're a reliever, you get to play. In football, it's if you're the backup right guard, you might not play at all, right? It's hey, this guy's been on the team for 7 years. He's not a starter anymore.
But again, that's why I think it's a perfect mix for Garoppolo, because what you just described is a very realistic situation. But again, so he's got the edge. He knows he can't be just average. He's got to be really good.
But you said 2021, and I'm with you. Today, and even going into training camp, I do think it could change. In camp and the preseason games, because just think about when he came back from the ACL, that Monday night Denver Bronco preseason game. That I don't know, Booger, whoever was calling it then, that was a disaster. Remember that? It was oh my God. They ended up making the Super Bowl that year, but it was everyone around they're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, that's part of that is dependent on how good Jimmy is. Now, you're right. Preseason starts, and Trey Lance starts running around making plays. Whoa. Oh.
Yeah, that's my point. I just think Trey can do things that Jimmy can't, that some of Jimmy's advantages when a guy is just physically so much more gifted. Because the one thing he had with Tom is like, I bet Bill was saying, kind of like having this guy who's just a little more mobile. And then we've watched Jimmy. It's not like Jimmy ain't Josh Allen, but relative to Tom, I bet inside, like him and Josh, like we can do some boot stuff. We can do some rollout stuff.
Tom's like, how about I just get rid of the ball in half a second and throw it to the right place?
At one point in time, think about how crazy life is. Jimmy Garoppolo was in New England when Tom Brady was widely considered, even at the time, the greatest quarterback of all time. And I bet people were telling him, maybe even Bill telling, maybe not Don Yee, because Don also would tell Tom. But like Jimmy was getting the vibe like, bro, this is going to be your team. You're going to take over for Tom freaking Brady. And then things change. He's traded. And now he's fighting for his own life. Like, sports is kind of a microcosm in life. Like, you can really go penthouse to outhouse. Now, the great part is, even outhouse, when you're making big money, it's like not really an outhouse. You still get to live in the sweetest house. But you do have pride in what
Especially
you do. And yeah, it can change quick.
Yeah.
Like, Jimmy's a couple bad years away from just being a backup. Right? It sounds kind of crazy, but when you think about it, like a bad year this year, he doesn't win a spot next year as a starting quarterback. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo could turn into a backup, I think, faster than we think. / he could resurrect his career and have 8 more years of starting quarterback.
You can become a backup and then become a starting quarterback pretty quick, right?
Which one, like, is he more likely to kind of have that career kind of up and down, or would you say he's a starting quarterback at minimum the next 4 or 5 years?
I don't know. I think it's a fork in the road this year. I don't know. I think he's capable of being a starting quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years. I definitely do. But, he's not going to get that up. First and foremost, he's not going to get that opportunity if he's not healthy this year.
Yeah. No.
Because at minimum, if you're healthy, you can come into camp and maybe we draft a guy and then you got to beat him out. But at least you can beat him out. If you're not healthy, no one's even going to give you that chance. Like, here's $9 million. Here's the Andy Dalton situation last
But
year,
even Andy, like Jimmy's high has
year.
been probably higher than Andy. But Andy just has way more games. Like,
his career
started
as a
for 8
player,
straight years.
yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy at any moment could just head to the training room.
So, I mean, do you feel like you know an answer to that question?
No, he, in a weird way, he's one of the more fascinating players in the league. Like, what's his career? If you told me he was a backup in 2 years, I'd believe it. If you told me he had a great year and then gets kind of the Alex Smith, like they trade him, he signs an extension with the Washington football team, I believe that too.
Yeah,
because he's not that old and he's pretty good. He's better than most, but he's not an elite guy. He's kind of one of those in the middle.
Better than most. Better than most. That was my golf call.
We think about you, Tiger.
Was that the line? Better than most?
Yeah, better than most. Better than most. And it finally goes in.
It's always such a weird call to me. John, let's tell the people about Indeed.com/ham before we move on. Right now, you're the hiring expert for your company. And what you really need to help make a short list of quality candidates, you need a hiring partner who makes your life easier. You need Indeed. Indeed.com/ham. It's the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. You post, you screen, you interview, all on Indeed.
With the tools like Indeed Instant Match, giving you quality candidates whose resume on Indeed fit your job description immediately, and Indeed skill tests that on average reduces hiring time by 27%. You can choose from more than 130 skill tests that add your must-have requirements. Because that's the thing. When you're looking for a job, a candidate, you want to do specific things, and you want to find the people that are good at specific things. That's where Indeed comes in. They run these queries. They get the best candidates right in front of you. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, guy. You need Indeed.
73% of all online job seekers in the U.S. visit Indeed each month, according to ComScore. And with Indeed Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their job post. $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/ham. That's a $75 credit at Indeed.com/ham. Indeed.com/ham. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply.
I love my Conditties.
I like Conditties. How are the Conditties today? It's blowing hard from the east to the west.
It's a big golf thing.
I never heard that until I heard. Was it No Laying Up maybe that I heard that on first? I was like,
yeah, it's a good line.
It's a good line. All right. Speaking of George Kittle on Good Morning Football, he also said this, John. So Nick Bosa's coming back. We re-signed Trent Williams. Those guys are pretty decent. ESPN did a top pass rushers list, and Nick Bosa didn't make the list. We bring back Fred Warner, 5 starters in the secondary, and we got a decent tight end, end quote. I appreciate a good defiant, like no one believes in us. And I definitely appreciate a guy talking about a list that I couldn't find, even though I tried. Now, maybe it was, I don't know what pass rusher list he's talking about, but Bosa wasn't on it. He remembered it. Who knows who did it? He's pissed. So I love a player's ability, and I'm not being tongue-in-cheek. Like, I'm serious. Like, you left me off the list. You left my guy off the list. Middle finger to you.
I do think lists used to resonate, at least like they used to have more everyone agree. Like a list was a big deal 15 years ago when there were like 5 total lists. Right. There could be 7 million lists now. Like, yeah. I mean, every, swinging, what could have a list out there. I don't even know how you keep track. Now, if ESPN.com did it, I get it. My pushback would be, and I'm with you. I like this too. I like this mentality. George really is an underdog in the sense of his talent's not, but 5th round pick. Right, it was any to me late round pick is an underdog that becomes a star. Like they have the right mentality and the way he plays. He plays like every possession, every catch, every play that he's in is going to be his last. The thing I would push back on Nick Bosa, if he had been 4-year starter and in like back-to-back Pro Bowls, like I would get it. He had played 1 year. Now that year was awesome, way better I think than even the Niners thought he was going to be, and they clearly loved him. Definitely better than, fans by halfway through, you're like, God, this guy's incredible. Like he was awesome. He was like Khalil Mack, who was probably the best pass rusher on the West Coast. Outside pass rusher, there's Aaron Donald too. But like what Nick Bosa does, he was nowhere near that good as a rookie. I guess Joey Bosa too, and Joey was pretty good. But remember, Joey sat out some games, and then he showed up and he started kicking everyone's ass. And I think I know myself, I'm like, is he really going to be as good as Joey? And they're different type players, but I think it's safe to say like he might be a little better than Joey because he's slippier. Slipperier. Can't even say that word. That's the word I'm looking for.
That feels like a weird word.
Because when you're based on power, the way the NFL, you just can't run guys over every play. And not that Joey's a great power guy, same with Khalil. But like Von Miller, when he's right, when you can just slip around guys, bend that edge, run the hoop, it's a borderline impossible play to stop. Like it really is when you can bend the edge, and Nick can bend the edge. Now, the knock on him is just because I do think George is right. If we got this guy healthy for 17 games, I'm with you. He's a fucking monster, and your defense is a lock to be good. Well, I think that's a question. Can they depend on that? To me, he's the biggest question of all the guys he listed. Because now even they got 2 quarterbacks. So even if Jimmy goes down, throw in Trey. Can Nick Bosa play the entire season? Hell, George, can you play the entire season?
Can their 5 starters in the secondary play the entire season? That's been an issue in the Niners secondary for several years, right? Hell,
Tart gets hurt a lot.
Jimmy Ward's been hurt.
K'Wan Williams again.
Very good player. Jason Verrett. One of the stories of the Niners last year was that Jason Verrett didn't get hurt. So the question with this team is not.
Well, the Chiefs
are they talented?
Chiefs brought in K'Wan, and they liked him a lot. I don't think the medical, not that we all know this. He's been injured. They were just a little uncomfortable. And I think the Niners clearly, they just took him back. He was so cheap. The medical is pretty risky with him.
And he was out there in the wind for a while.
Big time. You know why? Because he couldn't pass physicals. It's like bone on bone to his knee. But he is one of the best nickel corners. So they do have a lot of question marks for a team that on paper, I'm with everyone, is a playoff team. But I'd say it starts with Nick. Like, if I gave you over under 13.5 games, Nick Bosa.
If you told me right now he plays 13, take it or leave it, I'd like 14, but I'd probably take that. But missing 4 games that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
It's almost a quarter of a 17-game season.
The Chargers would take that with Joey.
Would you take, if I told you 13 games, take it or risk and try and get a 15-game, a 16-game year out of Nick Bosa? What would you do?
I try to do this with a stock.
Assuming it's not like the last 4 games of the season and he's done for the year.
I have this stock that's up about $7,000. I was going to pay off my credit card just with profits. And I'm like, I think it could go up like another 10%. I'll have even some extra money. And then the last couple of days, like, whoop, and I got a little greedy. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'd be greedy. I'd want 15, 16 games. But if you said 13, I'd probably have to sign up for that.
Yeah.
Which is not good, right? Like if I told Sean McVay he gets 13 games out of Aaron Donald, he would not sign up for that, right?
No, but I also think part of this is, okay, do I get 13 games out of Nick Bosa, but Kittle, Fred Warner, my secondary, and Trent Williams play the whole year? Or is it 13 games out of Nick Bosa and 14 games out of Trent Williams and 15 games out of Fred Warner and 13 games out of, and then the secondary is piecemeal the whole year? Like that. Like to me, if a guy gets hurt for 4 games, okay, that's the big difference.
Yeah, that's inevitable.
If you said 13 games for Bosa, but that's the only major like star player that gets hurt for the Niners, you'd go, okay, that you can do. If you tell me, well, they're going to have like 4 they're going to have 4 star players get hurt, you'd go, well, now I'll roll the dice because I need a full season out of Bosa. If you tell me that 2 guys in the secondary and Fred Warner each miss games. So, that's if you went through every team in the league and said, give me the big ifs with them. If X, then they're great. You go, if the quarterbacks are good and if they're healthy. That's what the Niners' ifs are, right?
Yeah.
If they're healthy, I don't know that they win the Super Bowl, but if they're healthy, they're in the play. Like, if this team is healthy, they are in the playoffs.
1,000%. Because their margin for error, too, they just have more good. Like, the Rams are extremely top-heavy, right? Like, if they have an injury, it might not be a big deal. But if it's Aaron Donald and he missed 2 months, they're screwed, right? If Jalen Ramsey's out for a month, they'd be in trouble.
Yeah,
that's where the Niners
Matt Stafford
are.
misses 3 games. Be interesting. John Wolford still on the squad?
I think he likes him a lot.
He does. But he got hurt trying to play him a certain way.
I know, he got his neck broken. He didn't actually get his neck broken, but he did
go to the hospital.
Yeah, he got crushed.
Goff came into the game as the second quarterback.
I know.
Think about that. I don't think that.
Sean McVay, I'm telling you, guy, what I said earlier, if the equivalent would have happened with Kyle and a quarterback that he had given the go-ahead to give that much money and the way it got, I think it would have been a bigger story in the NFL than what Goff. And maybe it's just Goff is kind of boring to people, so maybe not. But I don't feel that story got enough pub.
I think part of it is he still won 10 games last year, not 6. And then he pivoted into Stafford, right? Like he started saying, McVay started saying how much he hated the guy right around the time he pivoted into Matt Stafford. If he talked like that for a year.
He must have known. Yeah.
I mean, he had his former executive was there in Detroit, so they got the deal done.
They must have felt pretty good about that because he doubled down on his hatred, and then all of a sudden he was gone. And then Jared Goff.
Are you trying to boost his stock? Like, no, I'm not.
Can you imagine going from Malibu to Detroit?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk shit about Detroit. I've never been there.
No, it's hard. But you apparently very good Mediterranean food scene in Detroit from what I've seen on the Food Network. And, John, when you're rich, when you're really rich, like really rich.
He's really rich.
You're not like, where are the good neighborhoods?
I think when you make 35. Do you think he struggles qualifying for loans at $35 million?
Like, did you see Matt Stafford? Like,
how much money do you want, Jared?
Well, Stafford's L.A. Like, that's fantastic. But do you remember seeing Stafford's house in Detroit?
It was sweet.
It wasn't like, grimy. That's what I've heard. Like, no, it was fine.
You notice, like, whenever you hear a guy on a podcast, and it could even be older guys, like in the 90s or the 2000s, they always say, yeah, when I came to this town, I lived in this guy's house. And it's always some other famous athlete because he's like, I need to rent my house out. There's not a huge line like the richest guy in town. Like, it's easier to rent out an apartment for $1,000 than it is one for $20,000 a month. Well, who's your market for $20,000 a month? It's the Jared Goffs of the world that are coming in, right? I bet Matt Stafford, wherever he's living, if he doesn't already own a house, if he rented a house in L.A., it is more than likely from someone famous, right?
Yes.
Potentially an athlete. Right?
Well, now it used to be, Hollywood actors you're making, but now the athlete's making $20 million. It's like even the actors can't. I mean, some of them can.
I would say beside like The Rock or Leo, there aren't many actors, especially with the way acting is going and movies not being as powerful as they once were. I bet some of these Netflix and Amazon Prime are like, we're cashing it in. Like, what do you think Ted Lasso got from Apple?
I mean, what's he getting for the second season? I'm glad you're finally watching that show. It's a very good show.
It is fantastic. It is. It's exactly what I needed. Something easy, something light, something funny, something unique.
Heartfelt.
Like it's just kind of different. Yeah, it's
I
just
resisted
different.
for a long time because I saw the promos. I'm like, this is cheesy. Like, no way. It was really good.
It's well done. You pay for Apple TV?
I probably. I mean, I got it on a 1 month thing to watch that show, and I'm sure I still have I'm sure I'm still paying for it. I just canceled HBO Max yesterday after we talked about it because I realized it's $15 a month. There's nothing on it I'm watching right now. If something I want to see, I'll reactivate. If like Curb Your Enthusiasm comes back, then I'll start paying again. But there's nothing like just getting you to forget about a subscription.
Well, I actually need to write this down.
I've got like 9 Audible credits I haven't used. Well, it's like,
Manscaped charged me like $17.99. I saw on my credit card statement. Like I haven't used you guys. I did a one-time buy.
Get?
What do you?
Did
I
they
didn't
send
get
you
anything.
something?
No, it pissed me off. But I had forgotten about it. Sometimes you see it's like, do I even want to call them like $17? But is it a recurring thing? I don't know.
The answer is yes. You want your $17 back.
For sure.
It's your $17. If they took $17 from everybody secretly, illegally, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. They'd go to jail.
Oh, I know. That's
Maybe.
a good point. I need to call.
But
I don't really want to talk to anybody.
I know. But sometimes that's why I did the Xfinity did that one online. Maybe you can do it online, but you probably forgot your password. You probably
But I didn't have
a
a
password.
password.
Yeah.
I know. That's shady lady.
All right. Big week. U.S. Open. Get in the DraftKings game. If you're watching on YouTube, we had a little technical issue at the beginning. I only mentioned that because that's why we haven't brought some of the comments in today, but we've been seeing you. Thanks for hanging out with us there. We appreciate it. Anything else we need to say?
That's all I got.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging.